Welcome back to the Untouchaballs podcast. Caden and Leo here. Caden, how you doing today? It's been a while since we've had a good in-person one.
Yeah, it has been a while. I'm doing pretty good, Max. How about you?
I am doing well myself, and we are continuing our coverage of pre-draft analysis, Caden, of our top 5 positions before we ultimately do, our big round 1 mock draft episode before the NFL draft. But Caden, today on our agenda, we have tight ends, we got wide receivers. Which one do you want to start with first today?
I think we should start with this tight end class, and it is one of the more stacked positions that we
Yes, it
have
is.
in this
Yes,
year's
it
draft
is.
class, where this is a very deep position. This is probably the second deepest position in this class behind the running back position. So we have a lot of very good tight ends in this class. A lot of good ones. It's going to be interesting to see how this top 5 list shakes up between me and Mex here for both of them, as it's a very good wide receiver class as well. But this tight end, with how deep it is, it's going to be interesting to see, especially the back half of the top 5, because it seems like, at least for most people, that top 2 is set, but the order at least is a little wishy-washy.
It is, Caden. Let's start off with the number one clear-cut tight end, in my opinion, Tyler Warren out of Penn State. A lot of people's number one on the big board. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of debate there. He's came in. He's got it done. He can run a variety of routes. He's physical. He can block, Caden. He is just a complete prospect as his tight end. Some comparisons almost like Brock Bowers of a year ago, how he's going to come in, be pro-ready, plug in any NFL offense and be ready to go.
I also have Tyler Warren here at the top of this tight end draft class, as he's a 6'6", 255 tight end. So he has the size, he's got the power. And then we saw what he did being the focal point in the receiving game on that Penn State offense last year, where, yes, they had that great rush attack there with Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. But then in that pass attack with Drew Aller at quarterback, Tyler Warren was their man. He was their big play, short play, anything like that. Tyler Warren's the guy. He put up 104 receptions, a little over 1,200 yards and 8 tutties. So he had a great season there. And I think when you compare it with that size and what he's already shown he's been able to produce offensively, I think, like you're saying, kind of like Brock Bowers, he can be a quick plug and play type tight end into basically any team who takes him.
Yeah, most definitely. Who do you have at your number 2, Caden?
So yeah, for tight end 2 is the other, I guess, like top consensus tight end in this draft class in Michigan Wolverines player Colson Loveland. Tight end there, also 6'5", 245. But I mean, he doesn't have, like, the reason I think I have Tyler Warren above him is Colson Loveland a little less size comparatively to Tyler Warren. And also, we just haven't seen up the same type of production that we've seen out of Warren in the collegiate level, where the best season statistically for Colson Loveland was the 2023 national championship season, where he had 45 catches for 650 and 4, where we saw Colson Loveland basically double that this year. That I just think, I think he can be a very good tight end. He has the athleticism to be one of these better receiving tight ends in the league. I don't think he stacks up production-wise, size-wise, or even really tape-wise comparatively to a Tyler Warren. And that's why I have him just at number 2, but I still think he's one of these best tight ends in the draft class.
Correct, Caden. Obviously, doesn't have the same blocking presence that Tyler Warren does, but he had those down year coming off an injury, right? Absolutely detrimental, devastating. And if he didn't get injured, Caden, he's probably looking at a top, number 1 tight end, or 1B at least, more clearly with Tyler Warren. I think he kind of dropped a little bit just because of lack of production, like you said, him rehabilitating, getting back to going. But the potential is there. The body of work is there. The framework is there. He can be electric with the ball in his hands. Like you said, more of a receiving threat than a true tight end. He's not going to come down and blow any linebackers out of the box, Caden, but still a phenomenal talent. Definitely clear deserving tight end number 2 of this class.
Yeah, so now as we move on to tight end number 3, this is a guy that we had touched on, but when we were previewing the East West Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, it's a group of 5 conference here. It's in the MAC. Bowling Green Falcons tight end Harold Fannin Jr., who little less size than the first 2 times we've been talking about here, where he's only 6'4", 230. But what we've been able to see on tape for Harold Fannin throughout his college career, especially last season when he became the focal point of that Bowling Green offense, I think we could be looking at a true receiving threat at the tight end of the future, where last season for Bowling Green, 117 catches for over 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. So he can, at least we saw last year, he can assume that workload of being the number one target, being that top receiver on a team, take that, and he can produce with it. You give him 117 targets. He gave you 1,500 yards. Obviously, it's against a lesser competition in a lot of MAC schools, other group of 5 schools. But I think what we've been able to see out of the size, the mobility, athleticism of Harold Fan, I think is really going to help him play at that next level.
Yeah, Caden, there definitely are some size concerns and, of course, the level of competition. But here's what I got to say. No matter what level of football you are at or who you're playing against, if you can ball, it'll show on film. And when you look at Fanning's tape, you look at his resume, you look at the body of work, he gets it done, Caden, at an elite level, at a high cliff where he's counted on by his team. He can put the team on his back. He can run a lot of diverse routes in the route tree. He's just a very solid prospect that I think has the potential when getting in an NFL team, proper nutrition, a better weight program. He's going to put on the pounds the right way, right? We're not talking about, just eating everything in sight and getting big here. We're talking about good nutrition, weight where he can improve as a blocker and, learn to use his little bit of shortness as leverage in the running game as well as an explosion in the passing game. So I also have him at number 3. A very exciting prospect who I am looking for, have an explosion in the coming years of the NFL.
So who is your number 4 tight end in this draft class?
Coming in at number 4 from actually your Texas Longhorns, Gunnar Helm. I think he's one of these tight ends that's honestly been a little overlooked and I think pushed down on a few boards that I've seen, Caden, just from a few different teams. And I think that's no knock to him, but more of a testament to the depth that this tight end class really has. But, with Quinn Ewers at Texas, he was definitely a safety blanket. I'm going to talk about another tight end who was a safety blanket, but just that consistent force, a consistent presence for quarterbacks. You want your tight end to be someone who's going to be smart, physical, can catch the ball, and, be there consistently for your quarterback, right? And that's what Gunnar Helm's going to be able to do. He's going to go out there, he's going to catch the ball, he's going to be consistent, and he can be explosive, and he can move with the ball in his hands, Caden. A little less, like freak athleticism than some of these other tight ends, right? He is more of a gritty, hard-working guy, but he's going to put his nose to the grindstone and he's going to make it happen.
Hey, I love Gunnar Helm. I definitely think he could be a good future in the NFL. I don't have him at number 4 here on my list. As for number 4 on my list, I do have the tight end out of Miami for the Hurricanes, Elijah Arroyo, 6'4", 245, where I know we have never seen a full, just healthy season out of Elijah Arroyo. He's a lot of you look at the frame, you look at what he's able to do when he's on the field, kind of like when you look at it in the MLB with Royce Lewis, where when he plays, he competes at a all-star plus level, but he just isn't on the field as much as you'd like. That's what it is here with Elijah Arroyo, where when he plays, he produces at a very great rate, where last year, 35 catches, 590 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He was great last year, but in the years before, he only combined 11 receptions because he was never able to stay on the field. I think why I have him here on above a Gunnar Helm is just more based on what I think the upside for an Elijah Arroyo could be over a Gunnar Helm, where I think we could see that in Elijah Arroyo, if he is healthy, become one of these, like you're saying, how Gunnar Helm is one of those freak athleticism type tight ends. Arroyo is one of those type of tight ends where he has all that athleticism in the world. If we can get him to stay on the field, he'll be able to produce at a very high level.
And you know what, Caden? I'm glad you brought that up because he is also one I was a little iffy on putting on my list. I did have to go back and forth with some players, Ferguson out of Oregon is a phenomenal talent as well. More receiving kind of guy, as we talked about, so we didn't know if we want to include him here. But I have Elijah Aurora at my 5. Again, just because of the concerns with, the consistency in his body of work, the being off the field, those are a little concerns. But like you said, when he's actually on the field, he could be a very great help to any NFL offense. And not only that, as you saw it with Cam Ward, he's been his safety blanket, a big target tight end. When you are able to build up rapport with quarterback, especially a top quarterback like Cam Ward, I think it helps you. And I think that's definitely what's helped bring his draft stock up, Caden. A lot of people have had eyes on Miami, and they've seen, the sparks, the flashes, the potential of him. An exciting prospect.
For sure. So, yeah, at my 5, I guess we have the first three the same. We have the same 5 people, just these last 2 flipped.
Yeah.
Because I do have Longhorn tight end Gunnar Helm here at 5, where it's really he's been able to show he can catch the ball, run a good route, find open space, get in the end zone. It's just I think it's really what's holding him back is that athleticism that keeps him still in the top 5, but just at the back of it, where I know it was with a hurt ankle at the combine, but he was the slowest tight end at the combine. He was running 40 times that offensive linemen were running, that tackles were running. That's just not great to see. I know it was on a sprained ankle, and that get off the sprained ankle, it's going to be faster. It's still not going to be fast, though. He lacks that kind of downfield speed, that just kind of burst of athleticism there, that I still think he can be a very productive type of pass catcher there, down low, finding some open space, but just not as elite as we get more into that open space downfield.
Yeah, most definitely. Again, his strengths are more within the, his versatility as a blocker, being able to play in various 12, 11 personnel packages, Caden, as that tight end. But it's a very solid class. Any other players, honorable mentions you wanted to bring up or guys you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I think the closest miss there for me was someone you did mention with Terrence Ferguson of Oregon. It's just kind of like what you said. He's not a good run blocker really at all. That I think for the tight end position, while yes, you do want to be a very good offensive player, which Terrence Ferguson is, it's just at times you also want to be able to block, especially in the run game, which is what we see out of these elite tight ends.
Right.
And he lacks that. And I think that's what kind of just holds him back just outside.
Yeah, most definitely. Hey, now transitioning over to the money makers, the explosive players, the divas, quote unquote, sometimes. Caden,
Oh, yeah.
One of the most loved, most hated, talked about positions in all of football, the wide receiver position, Caden. Give us your number one. Let's hop right into it.
Yeah, so the wide receiver position's a little weird when you're doing like these rankings
It is.
before the draft, because there's one player named Travis Hunter, who in college obviously was a big two-way player, receiver, corner. It doesn't seem like he's going to be able to do the two-way once we get to the NFL. He's not going to be able to withstand that workload of a full NFL season running two-way. So it's going to be interesting to see what's he going to be. Is he going to be a full-time receiver or a corner who kind of works in on some offensive packages? That I don't have Travis Hunter here in my wide receiver rankings. I guess kind of a long-winded way to say that, as I see him more as a true corner in this draft class, and teams will work him in that couple offensive packages a game, get him still some snaps on offense, but that primary concern will be playing corner. So for my number one receiver here, I have Arizona Wildcat Tetairoa McMillan, 6'5", 212, elite size for a wide receiver. And it shows on the field where this past year in a very down year for Arizona, a team that had a lot of expectations, especially with that combination between Noah Fafita and Tetairoa McMillan. While it wasn't a good year for the team, it was still another good year for McMillan, who produced 84 receptions for just over 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. And I think that is a very good sign against some tough Big 12 defenses, that he was able to still produce at this type of level. And the added plus, obviously, is that size, being able to get to 6'5", and then you'll be able to, like you were kind of saying with Harold Fannin, get him into a NFL kind of strength and conditioning nutrition program, get him up to that 225, 230 size. Already some good speed by him. He could be kind of a DK Metcalf type receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, Caden, already hopping right into this one with some discrepancies, as I thought we would. I think we, differed a lot within, our conversation about this wide receiver class throughout the season. But again, I got Travis Hunter here first and foremost, number one, best wide receiver in college football this past year. Caden, Heisman winner, what he's able to do with the ball in his hands, what he's able to do at the point of attack when that ball is in the air. As a jump ball receiver, for how small he is, he gets up against anyone. He can make a play on that football. Explosive, elite route running, elite footwork, and elite hands, of course. He's everything you want to see in a prospect. Absolutely complete. And my clear-cut number one. And now whether he plays that or not is going to be determined in, I think it's 10 days now, at the NFL draft next week, which is exciting. It's coming up quick, Caden. But we're going to have to wait and see whether he is a cornerback or wide receiver, but he's my number one at both positions.
Yeah, if we were doing, if I did have Travis Hunter in for my receiver, it would be a very tough decision between him and Tetairoa McMillan for the top of this class. Because, yeah, like you're saying with Travis, he is an elite receiver where he has the route running ability. He has the jump ball, especially for being not as big of a receiver as some of these other ones we will be seeing, that he does embrace that side as well. I just think what we're going to see is going to be better off in that corner, or at least what I think we're going to see in the NFL. Going to my number 2 receiver in this draft class, a true down season, not only for him, but for their entire team, even more than Arizona. It's the Missouri Tigers, who came into the year as a top 10 team in college football and really disappointed. Obviously, a lot of injuries to starting quarterback Brady Cook. They kind of limited to it, but I have Luther Burden the third as the second best wide receiver in this class. Little, not as tall, little undersized for the receiver, only 5'11", 208 though, which is good size for someone that tall. But obviously this year, down year, only 61 catches for just shy of 700 yards. But when you look at that 2023 season out of Luther Burden, where he had that 86 catches, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns for a Missouri Tigers team that won a New Year's Six bowl game at the time, I think he's able to produce. He has some of this top speed for wide receivers in this class, and he's got the route running and the hands. I think he's able to produce a lot, whether it be in the slot or as a burner on the outside.
And yeah, Caden, definitely lots to like there. But at my number 2, I'm going with probably a little bit of surprise to a lot of people. But I do have Emeka Ibuka out of the Ohio State University as my number 2 receiver in this class. And this is why. For his body of work throughout the entire duration of Ohio State, he is now the number 1 all-time leading receiver in that class. And you got to think, he's played behind some players like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave. It's been a very deep wide receiver room. And some people might see that as a knock with him, playing a wide receiver 2 role a lot of the times in the offense because they've had that true X receiver. But this is why I think it's good. He's been around those guys. He's been able to learn from them. He's been able to pick up the best traits in route running, the best traits in film study, the best traits in ball attacking. He's been able to sit and learn from so many different great minds and quarterbacks. He's been able to develop and put all these skills together into such a complete, well-rounded prospect who has burst with the ball in his hands and elite speed. He's just an all-around exciting prospect, Caden. I really like him, and I do have him above some other people that you have even talked about for some other reasons we're going to talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, so I will have Emeka Ibuka on this list. It'll be coming just in a little bit. When we get on to my number 3 receiver in this class, I think this is a receiver who really flew up a lot of draft boards after the combine, where Texas Longhorns receiver Matthew Golden was the fastest wide receiver at the combine, the only wide receiver to run a sub 4.3. He ran a 4.29, the second fastest 40 in the entire combine, only behind Maxwell Harrison in Kentucky, where Matthew Golden really became the true number 1 receiver for Texas this season, a big deep ball threat, where we thought with the transfer of Isaiah Bond coming over from Alabama that he was going to become the big number 1 receiver, be the top or one of the top wide receivers in this upcoming draft class, being the big speedster down the field, getting 1,400 yards here there for Texas this year. Well, he did produce. He didn't produce as much as people would expect, and that was because of what Gunnar Helm was able to do and what Matthew Golden was able to do, where he, on only 58 catches, just shy of 1,000 yards and 987 and 9 touchdowns. He has that deep ball ability. He has good route running and that speed. Being able to run a sub 4.3, has the burners to even accelerate those jets a little bit more. Is 6 foot, so just has enough height to be about an average size wide receiver that I think we could see Matthew Golden going in round 1 and being one of these best receivers in this draft class.
Yeah, Caden. I also have him here at number 3, and here's why. We have talked about this list being how we think they're going to perform in the NFL and not necessarily ranking them from college, right? This is all a prospect ranking. Prospect, people. All right, because that is why I have Matthew Golden up here. The elite speed, like everything you just said, the frame, the route running, the ability to take the top off the defense. You get him in the right offense. You get him with the right coordinator. Oh, my gosh. He is offensive coordinator's dream of a wide receiver prospect, Caden. I wouldn't even want to begin to think about what happens if potentially he ends up in the hands of the Denver Broncos or something along those lines with someone like Sean Payton. Very exciting.
Matthew Golden at 20?
Yeah, if he were to fall, that would be insane. very exciting thoughts when I think of him as a prospect. That is why I have him at number 3, Caden. But at number 4, it was very close between this player as well. Like you said, Tetairoa McMillan, who you had as your number 1. Obviously a phenomenal prospect for all the reasons you mentioned. His ability to, play so well in so many diverse aspects. And not only that, just his frame, right? Being the biggest receiver in this top 5 draft. He is your ideal pro Calvin Johnson X, not like I'm making that comparison to Calvin Johnson, but that's the prototype. Yep. When you think of wide receiver, someone like Calvin Johnson comes to your mind, right? And he's going to fit that mold. He's a very good prospect. I do have a little bit concerns just with the consistency of his motor and his approach to the game. He kind of had some pre-draft comments about him not liking to watch film and just some little character concerns I personally have about him, which is why I think it may take him a year of development or a year or two of some growing pains before he ultimately does kickstart and get going to that prospect that you and I and everyone else thinks he's going to be at the next level.
Okay, hey, fair point. I understand that. Still think Tetairoa is the best receiver in this class. Fair. My number 4, though, is who you had at number 2. It is Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. We're like, yeah, Ohio State, it is wide receiver U. Yeah. They have so many of these top receivers. Them and LSU have a lot of these top receivers in the NFL coming out of their schools that, yes, you're going to be in a stacked wide receiver room every year you're there. So you're going to be learning from good coaching. You're going to be getting experience and competition from other very high pro level guys.
Correct.
That it's going to help button you into a better player. And that's what we've seen out of Emeka Egbuka, where, yeah, he might have not been the true number 1 this year with the breakout of Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver.
Yes.
But still, 81 catches, a little over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. That is producing 6'1", 205, has the size, has the speed. He's going to be able to get open in the short space down the field. I think he can be just one of the better route runners we have in this draft class for sure. And then to finish all off at number 5, my 5th receiver here is the Iowa State wide receiver in Jaden Higgins, where kind of like Tetairoa McMillan has some of this better size in this draft class. He is 6'4", 215. And for an Iowa State team that surprised a lot of people this year with what they were able to do, 87 catches, just shy of 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, showing that he has, not only does he have the size to be a very good receiver, he is able to produce, show up in these moments, show that, he can have 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns on a team that not really anyone thought was going to be that good. This Iowa State team was supposed to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12. They shot everyone, and probably one of the biggest reasons why was Jaden Higgins being their lead receiver.
Yeah, definitely, Caden. I'm glad you brought him up because he did not make my list because of Travis Hunter. Yep. You didn't include Travis Hunter. But he probably would have been my 6 as well. Who I have at number 5 is the Missouri wide receiver you already talked about, Luther Burden. For all the things you mentioned, right? Definitely had a down year, but his potential, his explosiveness, his frame, everything he could do on the field makes him an elite prospect. Again, my concerns lie in his attack. There's been a lot of, instances where he may not run 100% routes when he's not getting the ball. And, just the signs and the few times where he's taken plays off, that's always a concern to me. His football character, his motor, how much is he going to, keep pushing when things go wrong? We saw a down year in Missouri. I would have liked to see a little more leadership, a little more corralling of the guys because they kind of had a roller coaster. And we kind of saw, a lot of turning heads whenever that program started facing some adversity this past year, Caden. But, again, he is a phenomenal with the ball in his hands. He can be explosive. He's phenomenal. Number 5 on my list.
Now, once again, interesting difference with our wide receiver. My 1 and 2 are your 4 and 5. Obviously, I didn't include Travis, so it's a little different. But our top 5 are actually for both of them. Our top 5 players are the same. It's just if you didn't include Travis,
correct,
you'd have Higgins, and if I had Travis, Higgins wouldn't move out.
Yes.
So even though for how kind of good both of these classes are, we have the same top 5 for both of them, which is kind of surprising with the same top 5 players.
It is, Caden, actually, but I think it really is the order that kind of changes it, right? Because we are talking about the prospect of how they ultimately turn out career-wise in the NFL.
Oh, for sure.
So when we look back in 4 years, and we go, how well did we hit? Which, honestly, we probably should do that I think in our 2020 episode would be really fun.
Look out for that.
Look out for that.
We're gonna look back at our 2020 mock draft and see
biggest hits and
misses from that first round.
That is exciting. But when we do look at that in the future, I think we're gonna have some great talk of where these prospects actually turned out.
For sure. Yeah, make sure you guys like this video if you did enjoy. Leave a comment. What do you agree or disagree with for these wide receiver and tight end rankings? What's your top 5 for both of them as well? Turn on post notifications so you never miss an upload, and share this with your friends, family, strangers, neighbors, anything like that.
Most definitely. We appreciate you all. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you all next time.